subscribe. Darling Radio. Watch and subscribe.
Have y'all heard about the story? There's a suspected white supremacist town now, an all-white town that they're advertising out there. Where is that town? Hold on, let me look that up. People have been talking about this place. A little old white supremacist enclave that they got. Where's that town? Um, it was called Ozark something. I forgot the name of it. Where's this place? Little old sundown ass. Okay, where is it? It's whites only community in Missouri, right? Let me see. This is from The Hill. It says a whites only group called Return to the Land, derided by critics as being racist and anti-Semitic. They're looking to expand its reach from its base in northern Arkansas to an area near Springfield, Missouri, the co-founder of the group says. The prospect of a growing whites only community where members are evaluated based on European ancestry and where Jews are denied membership is raising concerns among state and local official activist groups. Now, this group, they've been raising money on social media and crowdfunding and all that. Now, this RTTL, it describes itself as a private member organization. They began development in 2023 on its base in northern Arkansas, which sits on 160 acres of land. The co-founder of the group, Eric Orwell, said that he hopes to expand soon to an area outside of Springfield and expand to all 50 states. He says, we want to ensure that white Americans who value their ancestry will have the ability to live among like-minded people in the future if they choose to do so, regardless of demographic changes. So yeah, they understand. Let's translate this stuff. Um, Hold on, let me read some more real quick. He said they plan to coordinate homeschool groups, healthcare networks, legal advocacy groups, and more, all of which would be barred to people of color. Whites should have the ability to live among their own people if that's what they want to do. Mass immigration is making that nearly impossible in many Western nations. Okay, that's all cap. So listen. That's why this is a problem. See, this is a problem. And I'm going to tell you why it's a problem. And first of all, how are they getting around this constitutionally and legally? How can they get around this? Because you got the Fair Housing Act and all of that. So these white supremacists, they know how to kind of skirt through little loopholes. What they do, let me tell you how they work in this thing. They label themselves as a private membership association. So they say that they're not selling or renting housing in the public market. They are a part of a private club or an intentional community. And the Fair Housing Act, that applies primarily to the public housing markets. So they structure their group as a private, religious, or cultural organization or association. So that's how they sidestep legal scrutiny. Family, this is why we got to have lawyers. Where are the black lawyers? This is why we got to have black lawyers for this stuff like this, because these folks have their own little legal teams that they can call on and help them understand legal loopholes and all of that. We need the same thing, not to be exploitive, but just to be on top of the game legally. We need a network of black lawyers. Where in the hell are you? We need black lawyers. We need black lawyers. We need black lawyers who we can just have in the Rolodex in all states, especially out there in the DC area. Where are the black lawyers out there? We need you guys on speed dial for a lot of constitutional stuff. Man, we need to hear from you guys. And I'm not talking about just volunteering, just being available so that we can hire you and y'all can let us know what's going on and we can take care of documents and policies and things like that. We need some real thorough lawyers out here in the game. And what they do, the white supremacists out here, the way they're getting around their stuff legally They are using cultural and religious criteria as a proxy. They'll say stuff like Christian values, European descent, traditional Western heritage. So they try to avoid using overtly racist language. Also, what they do, they avoid public advertising of housing. See, they don't advertise their homes to the public, and they only offer them to members. You see, so that way they can say, well, we're not subjected to the fair housing laws. So they do word of mouth marketing. And we got to understand something, that enforcement of the fair housing laws, it's a reactive thing. It's not really preemptive. Fair housing, that doesn't automatically prevent somebody from creating a discriminatory community. It really requires somebody to file a complaint, and then a government agency has to investigate. And if nobody sues or if nobody files a complaint, enforcement doesn't really happen. And they go in these little rural areas and little isolated areas, and a lot of times there's limited federal scrutiny for them. There's not a lot of civil rights watchdogs, so there's less public attention. You see, because look, I'd have been a few weeks ago. I was in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming. These places are damn near no man's lands. It ain't nothing out there. So those are perfect places for folks to set up these little enclaves in the little rural places like that. Even though the people out there were pretty friendly, but you never know what's in those hills and those mountains, what they got going on up there. And also, we got to understand, law enforcement is really complicit with a lot of these people. A lot of these members are in law enforcement or got family members in law enforcement. A lot of law enforcement sympathize with these white supremacists. Remember Mark Furman from the OJ trial? He moved out to some little white supremacist enclave, and I want to say it was in Idaho somewhere. It was some little Aryan enclave he moved to. You see, and a lot of these folks, they'll try to use the First Amendment shield. They'll claim freedom of association, freedom of religion under the First Amendment. Um, while these are not absolutes, they can still strategically argue that their group is based on shared values rather than race, even when it clearly is. So they know how to work these little loopholes, man. They know how to get their little legal team together and help them flesh out the little legal loopholes for them to get this shit popping like that. Know how to get out here and create these little intentional communities to exploit these little legal gray areas. If you have an intentional community or a homestead or an eco village, those are little words you can use to kind of exempt yourself from the housing codes or the traditional zoning laws. So they'll use these little words to create these exclusive spaces without triggering federal oversight. And they won't act like the typical landlords or real estate companies. And nobody's filed a suit yet. As of now, there's no lawsuits that's been filed against these communities. So the DOJ, HUD, or whoever, they need somebody to attempt to buy land and then be denied for racial reasons before they can take legal action. And obviously, black folks don't understandably don't have no interest in entering these little hostile environments just to test the law. But it's important that that shit gets shut down, though. Even though, yeah, we don't have a desire to do it, it's important to shut the shit down. You see, just like in the civil rights movement, a lot of people were saying, why were black people trying to eat at them nasty white restaurants anyway? And it's not about eating at the restaurant, it's about being able to move and shake with freedom without being discriminated against in places where you pay taxes. That's what it was about. It wasn't about the damn food. It was about being able to move freely in your own damn nation, going where you want to go in your own country, in the country that you built and pay taxes to. We shouldn't have to go through a separate damn door and sit on the back of a fucking bus. So yeah, they were absolutely right in tearing those laws down. and changing those policies. Now, we should not have given up some of the stuff that we owned. That was the bad part. We gave up a lot of the stuff that we owned. But I want y'all to understand these little white supremacist enclaves, that's some shit that's very dangerous, actually. It's a very dangerous thing. Now, let's be very clear. They already got de facto whites only neighborhoods. The majority of white neighborhoods around the country are pretty much white only. They just don't say it explicitly. They use, little code words, and they whiten them up by certain policies, zoning policies. They'll price the black folks out, um, make it so that black folks can't get jobs in certain areas, do some little janky stuff with the schools so the kids can't go to school if you're black, have some kind of hair discrimination here. Yeah, so they got all types of policies to keep black people out of certain areas. They do that all the time. You go to these places, it's whites only. Montana is damn near whites only. You know what I'm saying? There's already whites only places out here. But this place, it's important for them to present it as whites only. That's important for them because they're trying to reset a precedent. That's why it's dangerous. This is why it's dangerous. Number one, it's dangerous because they want to normalize segregation under a new name. That's segregation. Calling it an intentional community, that's rebranding of Jim Crow style segregation. And if it's allowed, that sets a precedent for racial exclusion being re-legitimized in polite society. They'll cloak it in cultural preservation. It's the same poison in a new bottle. It's the same shit. It's Jim Crow. And it's dangerous. And here's the thing, they'll create these racially armed safe havens. See, these little compounds and little whites only place, these are not innocent places where they're going to be sitting around planting flowers and shit. No, there's going to be militia groups and all of these armed white nationalists showing up. So allowing them to legally cluster and train and organize in these isolated areas, that's a future building site for paramilitary activities. And if something go off, they'd be the first ones running down to a black neighborhood with the bullshit. You understand? In these little areas, they'll act as recruitment and indoctrination zones. Young people raised in these little communities, you're birthing the next white supremacists. And some of these people will try to make a false comparison. They'll say, well, in Georgia, there were some black people building a black only community. They were building some black only neighborhoods in Georgia. No, it wasn't black only, it was black owned. The communities in Georgia, they never said other people can't live there. It was just a bunch of black people pooled their money together and said, okay, this is going to be a black owned community. Nobody ever said whites couldn't live there. Nobody ever said that. We don't have the same racial fear and racial hangup. Nobody's excluding white people. But these whites only places, it's always undergirded by some type of violence. And that's the problem. That is the problem. Because now you get this little whites only town. What's going to happen if some black person mistakenly wanders off in that spot at night? What's going to happen to him? You know what I'm saying? What if somebody who don't know, they just driving around or whatever, and they get lost and, ooh, I need to make a phone call like these kids do. We've seen a couple of cases where some random black kid knocked on somebody's door because they got lost and the white person shot them. Usually these are immigrants who don't know no better. We as foundational Black Americans, we kind of know where to go and where not to go. We kind of hip each other to what's happening. But you might find somebody who's black and who might wander off in one of these places. What's going to happen to them? And if something happens to them, what type of legal protection will the white supremacists get? See, that's what I'm looking at. That's why that's dangerous. So you're giving these little white supremacists some kind of legal protection to start harming people. So if they go into your whites only members club, well, they were trespassing and you were justified in blowing their brains out. Nah, that ain't cool. I ain't with that. I ain't with that whatsoever. You see, because again, this is setting a legal precedent here. And then they want to, this will embolden a lot of anti-black aggression nationwide. If these people are allowed to exist publicly without any consequence, that sends a signal to races everywhere. You can be openly anti-black and organize publicly, and the system won't stop you. You see, so that's a problem. That is a problem, and that also spreads the myth that these white supremacists need protection. See, they kind of frame themselves as refugee communities from diversity, all this immigration and urban crime, and it's that white victimhood narrative, that blackness and multiculturalism, oh, that's a threat to white survival. So, that's the thing. It's all about preserving the white genes by not having sexual access to black people. And that's really what it's about. Wish they say it like that. They just don't want to. Dr. Welsing told us about this. Listen, a lot of these folks, if you're living with black people and your children are going to school, nature takes its course. People start dating each other and you start dating, those kids are going to be black. That's really what the fear is. Say that. Just say that and stop bullshitting around. Let me get some calls in here. Let's get Fawcett. Let's get Fawcett in the building. Fawcett, what's up?
Not on a vindictive nature, but I want to ask about the nature of these communities in and of themselves, because I don't want to say I fail to see the issue. I just fail to see why this would be an issue in the private sector. Like back during the segregation days, like restaurants, obviously segregation with a restaurant is a problem because they take public money. You can't just, first off, you can't run a good business denying half your customers or denying like, oh, a third of your customers out. It's not a good idea. The idea that segregation exists legally or is allowed legally in restaurants, movie theaters, it's preposterous. It makes no sense for a civilized society. I think we can all agree on that. However, this community that they're setting up is not opened to the public. This is private land that can then be applied to, and they can decide who can and cannot enter. So this goes from the public sector to the private sector. So the question I have for you is, when can we tell a private landowner, hey, you can't do that with your own private land on your own private property? Like, like a business like Walmart can't say no whites allowed because it takes public money. That makes sense. But when do we cross that line of now you're butting into a private landowner's business?
Well, the thing is, here's the problem. Well, when
Okay.
it's black people, they violate our private businesses, our private land all the time. They'll say, hey, you know what? Um, what do they call it? Eminent domain.
Yes.
They'll put that eminent domain shit on us all the time. We need this land. Oh, we need it. It was private, it's ours now. If it becomes too prosperous, if it becomes something that's going to make a lot of money, if it's something that's going to be successful, they got all types of little tricks that they run on us to bust that up.
Okay.
But they let these little white supremacist groups operate little legal loopholes, and that sets a horrible precedent. Like I said, um, that could be the new precedent for segregation. So now we can say we're going to discriminate against these black people. Let's just privatize the land. Let's just get this land, say that it's private, and have a word of mouth membership only admissions policy. That's how we can keep out the niggers. So that's an issue within itself, because then it becomes all about deprivation of resources, deprivation of education. So then it becomes all about deprivation. If you want to do that, fine, but give us the same resources to do something similar, which is not being done. So
Correct. So that's the line of logic I wanted to like at least explore a little bit. Was like you also brought up the white supremacist talking point of like the 90 acres in Georgia with like the 17 black families that made they made like, what are those, like they made the houses and like they seemed like it was like a neighborhood they were making or something like that. But you bring up that talking point of, oh, the white supremacists look at that community and they say, oh, they're doing it the same as well. We both know they're not doing the same as well. The black community is not excluding, but the logic I'm attacking is, if it's private land, what is the issue if they were to go ahead and exclude based off the privacy of the area, basically?
Because whenever they do that, there's always an incident of violence. That's just like I said earlier.
Yep.
What if some black person wanders over there by mistake or just happens to go over there, and all of a sudden they're going to do what they used to do during Jim Crow? They start killing and lynching and then justify it by, oh, he was trespassing. He shouldn't have been over here at night. Remember, they used to put up signs saying, hey, if you black, don't let the sun go down on you in such and such.
Yes, sundown towns, of course. Yes.
And James Lowen wrote a great book about that. So this is another version of that. They, in his book Sundown Towns, they would advertise these private communities, and they would go in newspapers. You can look it up and say, hey, come on to this new suburban area. We got great housing. We live by a river. There are no Negroes. So this is that.
So then with that line of logic,
Yeah.
would you then be against any membership that denies anyone based off of characteristics that cannot change? Like one of the big communities I see right now is 55 plus communities. You see them a lot in Las Vegas. You see them a lot in Arizona. They will not sell you a home or allow you to take on a mortgage unless you were over the age of 55, which is typical age discrimination. So if this same line of logic applies to race, would you then be in support of taking this line of logic and expanding it to where you can't do this based on age, you can't do this based on gender, so on and so forth?
Because it's different. There's no history of age lynching. So yeah, if you wander to a 55-year-old housing facility, yeah, you're not gonna get shot in your damn head because you're 30. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But
Sorry.
there's violence that come with these all-white enclaves every time. It's always undergirded by violence, without any exception. That's the problem. And again, this is going back into Jim Crow. So we have to take this very seriously, because in order to enforce that, you're going to have to use violence. That is the issue. It's never, they try to make it seem like, oh, it's going to be one of these happy-go-lucky places. We're all going to be making Rice Krispie treats, singing Bruce Springsteen song. No, stop bullshitting. These are going to be like militia enclaves, people running around there armed, people harming non-whites who try to come through for whatever reason. I don't want an Amazon driver to deliver a package there and he happens to be black and then they shoot him. Little shit like that. See, yeah, we can't have that. That
Okay. And just one last thing, since we already covered race, we've already covered age. Would you then support, because of obviously, if this gets taken up to the Supreme Court, they are going to have to rule that everything, they just can't have one or two. It's going to be every single thing. This is going to set a precedent to where clubs cannot discriminate based on anything that is protected. They're gonna rule that immediately.
right.
This is going to decimate not only race but gender relations in America as well, because you'll not be able to discriminate anyone based on the basis of gender. Would this set a good precedent of a civilized society by not allowing certain areas to be broken down by gender as well?
Like, what do you mean?
So basically, if this gets taken to the Supreme Court about the whites only communities, we know how this is going to work. What's going to go down is they're going to say, no, this is unconstitutional. You can't only sell to whites. You can't sell only to a certain protected community. So thus, this is broken down. If they were only going to determine it based on race, fine. You win, right? But if this gets to the Supreme Court and they determine that every single membership, quote unquote, cannot be given discriminatorily towards a protected class like race, religion, age, so on and so forth, you're going to see a destruction of gender specific areas. You're going to see a breakdown of age areas. You're going to see a breakdown of protected areas based off of items you cannot change.
Isn't there already a breakdown of gender specific areas now? What's gender specific now?
For example, like some people have brought up not age, gender restricted gyms. They've already tried to fight on that one. Men only gyms, women only gyms, not allowed to cohabitate. They've also done also the transgender thing's a very big thing as well. They're trying to go ahead.
I'm saying what's gender specific, because you got dude put on a wig and he can go up into crunch and put on a dress with his balls jiggling out and do some sit squats and nothing can happen to him. Yeah.
Correct. That's usually the state protecting him, not the federal government. The federal government has made it very clear that they don't recognize that. But just that's my question is are we ready to see in America where for the first time in 60 years, civil rights have been tested to this extreme? And if the Supreme Court rules in favor of, the people, the minorities that did not get it applied, it would break down the rest of American memberships altogether. Because that's how they're doing this. They're doing it by membership. They're not just saying, oh, get out of here, Asian. They're not saying that. They're doing it by a membership class. And that's literally the only way you can discriminate against people in your own private areas if you make a membership class. So if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the minorities that apply to this place, every single place in America is going to have to accept everyone. There's going to be absolutely no point of having a membership anymore.
Now let me get my good brother Dr. Randy Short in. Dr. Short, hop on in.
Yes, brother Tariq.
How you doing, Dr. Short?
Oh man, I'm okay. How are you?
I am good. We have Mr. Fawcett here talking about gender and race discrimination and possibly going to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So, Mr. Fawcett,
want me to fill him in?
Yeah, fill him in. Yes.
Okay. So basically,
I've been listening, so it's not like I'm not hearing you.
Oh, no worries. Sometimes people pop right in. I apologize for that. Go ahead, Tariq.
Okay, so Dr. Shaw, what do you think about what he's saying?
It's what you always get, frankly, when Black people talk about stuff. Other people jump in and begin to tell us where and how we should address the problem. Whether it's ennobled, basically we have, I guess, a white savior of the month or white savior du jour to tell us how we should feel and look at things and for the greater good of everyone, and relationship to a group of white people only wanting stuff for white folks. That's the problem here. And the thing that this man didn't do his homework, he can talk all about laws, but we got to deal with history and custom. Springfield, Missouri.
Go ahead.
Okay. Had a purge or an expulsion or an ethnic cleansing of Black people 99 years ago.
Correct. Tulsa race I believe.
No, not Tulsa. Springfield, Missouri. You don't know what you're talking. Exactly. Don't be sorry. This is why people don't feel or don't find what you have to say helpful, because you don't know the history of the very people that you're talking to. Springfield, Missouri. Even now, if you go and look within the last 25 years, they've had lynchings there. There was a guy, by the way, from Kenya, Tariq, named Kenya, who was hung from a power line 75 feet off the ground, and they said that he hung himself. You'd have to be Superman to fly up 75 feet and tie a rope to his neck, tie it to the wire, and then hang himself.
Wow.
This is what this guy acts like. Racism doesn't permeate every single solitary thing in this country. And so we're overwhelmed with just survival. I could care less about the gender stuff. The reason you need civil rights laws is because of white supremacy, white exclusion, white privilege, white hate, white mass murder, white genocide. I mean, so it doesn't, people, no matter what, they're going to find a way to hate, because that's what makes white people who they are, as an exclusionary, settler, bigoted group. And so it'll simply be another battle when this is done, because as long as people walking the earth and they choose a toxic, invented identity where hatred is the glue, the cohesiveness of people from Europe who hate each other, have been killing each other thousands of years. The only place they stick together is here, in their collective hatred of us, an existential hatred of us, rooted in history. In fact, and most of them walk around in collective denial, like you didn't even look up Springfield, Missouri, to understand why we might be concerned. So you know what they did Easter Sunday, April 14th, 1906, after they burned Mr. Coker and they burned the other black man to death. They had their white children on Easter Sunday dance in the ashes of the burnt up black men.
Correct,
That's
sir.
what we don't want. That's what we don't want. And for this is more or less a celebration that you're going to go in and purge and cleanse, because the destruction and the elimination of black people is part and parcel of the white identity in this country.
Correct.
We don't like it, but we can't do anything about it. So we don't have time. We don't have time to address the way you look at an issue. We need to survive the existential, maniacal, monomaniac hatred of our people.
So then let me ask you this real quick. Would it be worth, so in your eyes, it is worth, and I'm asking you this, in your eyes, is it worth it for the black community to lose all protections for all kinds of memberships, including age, race, gender, if it means that these communities no longer exist?
We don't have any protections as it is. If you look at the police murdering, beating, our people being made homeless by illegal terrorist killers brought into this country and given preferential treatment as a means to erase and eliminate us, which is a desire of white Americans. Going back to the Constitution and no more people being imported and so forth, and abortion, we're being pressured to kill our babies as people set up baby birthing plants here. So, you know, it just doesn't matter whatever your so-called book knowledge, college white guy talk that you want to give to the people here. It doesn't apply because of white supremacy. I'm certain you haven't read Neely Fuller. I'm certain that you haven't read Frances Cress Welsing. I'm certain you haven't read Carter G. Woodson or Amos Wilson. I'm certain that you haven't read John Hendrick Clark. You simply aren't classed to have a conversation about our reality.
Sir, I apologize. But
you don't have to apologize. You should listen and not suggest.
But
I don't go into white spaces making suggestions, especially when I don't know the history of the people who are talking. I learn. I'm not arrogant enough to even think I have a solution for another group of people, which you do.
Well, no, the issue, sir, is that this case, if it were to be brought to the Supreme Court, would not just affect black men, black women. It would affect every single person of every gender, ethnicity
we're
in the United
only
States.
Concerned about ourselves. We're delineating the same way those people want an all-white town. They don't even want black flies. We want our movement to deal with our issues to suit us as we see fit. We don't want anybody's help that doesn't get it the way that we see it. That's what we mean.
So, and just one last thing, I do also want to bring this up because even though it does cover race, it does cover gender, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and these memberships would then not be able to discriminate against anything that you have indicative of yourself. It would also cover like things like religion as well, nationality. All of these things would have absolutely no weight in membership anymore. So these black movements, these black memberships would then inherently become frivolous and meaningless, like these clubs and associations, because you can't deny membership to only those of the African race.
It'll always have meaning because of white supremacy and the white identity. You don't understand what you're part of. You don't know your own history, nor do you know mine, and yet you want to debate me. You don't know how silly you look to the people in the audience, sir.
Well, no, I'm not debating you as a black man. I'm debating you as a man. I'm debating you as
I'm debating you as a black American. because I don't do this race neutral thing. And I can say this to you as a descendant of the British and the German and the Russian royal families. I'm seen as a black person because of the caste system that your people made. And so I can only discuss, no matter what the diversity of my lineage, based on my melanin and my descent. Almost everything you say basically is off the table. It's non-negotiable. And we're not going to do this with another 400 years. So, why not sit down? You don't know what you're talking about. You don't have the comprehension of this issue in its totality.
Then the issue is
to suggest any
solution. The issue at hand here,
and to even you don't understand enough to talk about it.
Well, sir, it's very
simple. You just don't.
It's very simple.
It's very simple. You don't get it. That's what's simple.
What's very simple is that if this Supreme Court case of this whole white supremacist compound was brought up all the way to the Supreme Court, there would be literally no more protections for any memberships whatsoever. The movements that the FBA community have worked so tirelessly to bring up could be completely erased, because then you'd have frivolous lawsuits brought up to the FBA movement, to these associations, because, I didn't get accepted into it. My fear is that by prosecuting this, you're going to end up with an America where there is no, I don't want to say no pride, but all the associations that the FBA movement have what's what I'm looking for, worked so tirelessly to maintain, will be just destroyed overnight with one Supreme Court ruling. So it's almost unadvantageous to go after this, because it could lead to even worse consequences down the line. No one can start their own club anymore. No one can start their own membership anymore unless they accept every single person. So that's the issue I'm having. It's not, you don't know what you're talking about because you don't know the history of 1904 with the lynchings and stuff like that. I'm afraid of the future that is to come.
Okay,
if this happens. Continue.
Let me get our sister Love I Am to join the conversation.
Go ahead, Love I Am.
Can you guys hear me or no?
No, we can hear you. We can
Love?
Hear you. Yeah. Oh, he can't hear me. Dang.
Dang it. Tariq, I can hear her, but she can't hear, or you can't hear one of us. Sorry.
Ask him, can he bring me back up?
Okay, I hear you, Love. I hear you now.
Oh, wait. Okay, so you both hear her?
So I don't know if maybe Fawcett stated his credential and I missed it. That's the basis for his perspective. I don't know if he's a lawyer or something. But the issue that I see here is that, because I don't, if it went to the Supreme Court, it wouldn't be for the reasons that he's even outlining. I think that was what is going to happen, because he sounds like he has cognitive dissonance is what is happening here. It seems as if he's evading 350 plus years of shared history to make this argument. And so that's the issue that the doctor is having with his perspective, mine as well. And I would go as far as to suggest probably the majority of the room, it sounds off. Okay. I think the issue is that these white towns, how are they going to sustain themselves? How are they going to, it's going to have to come under, you have this group of people that has a history of domestic terrorism. You have a group of people who have had all of these massacres around the nation, which he just referenced one, and you took it back to Tulsa, which I think was weird as well. But my point is, the issue is, how are you going to keep these towns and communities? Because you're saying membership, but you have a group of people who have a history of domestic terrorism, brutalization, and genocide. So I would think that the towns are going to come under some strict scrutinization. The argument is that you've never been able to do this without being violent. Right. So it's not going to be about, can you do it? Because we know we can reference self-sustained Negro towns and communities all throughout history. But those towns and communities were bombed and flooded. by our government. We had 90% of our real estate stolen from us in a 60-year time frame. We also had our land, and Tariq referenced it earlier, seized by eminent domain, in which case that was them violating those private, these are private properties owned by citizens, and the government came up with fabricated reasons as to why
Correct.
they needed it more important than those private citizens. So even so, that's going to be our argument against those towns, because if
Okay.
you're going to be able to have your towns and we weren't able to have our towns, then that's a discrimination on record.
So
And then, but I
go
think
ahead.
that you'd be more, what would be more concerning is, how are you going to do this without being violent as you have been violent? So
So I
that's a
can
different conversation than someone just opening up a boys and girls club and only wanting
I can
children to be a part of it.
I can give you two reasons how it's going to change, or how it would be different nowadays. The problem is, pre 1959, 1964, there was legal protection behind the concept of segregation. No one could sue you. No one could, request to take you to court. They'd be laughed at and thrown out. We now have black women on the Supreme Court. We now have black men on the Supreme Court. And not only that, the concept of using eminent domain to bulldoze a neighborhood in Chicago for a highway no longer exists in the purview of the federal government. What they're more concerned with is, if crazy people want to go buy a plot of land 30 miles away from Chicago and start a 200-acre compound of their own people, as long as the tax revenue comes in, since the government can no longer give preferential treatment based on race, religion, gender, ethnicity, so on and so forth, it would literally make them more money to just put these compounds into a different tax bracket and accrue membership fees and tax them extra. There would be the violence that was associated with the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s. It no longer has a legal basis, even though murder does not have a legal basis.
Oh, yeah. Look at Jordan Neely. Yeah. Yeah. You can go kill somebody who said something you didn't like and said he broke a social contract. And yeah, they let Daniel Penny walk around free. Yes, it does. Yeah, you can still do that. This is what we're saying. And
But
we don't have any protections as Black people. We don't have no crime bill that protects us. And for them to try to set up an all-white enclave, that spells danger. There's absolutely nothing constructive about that to society. This is not like age discrimination, protecting people based on age. A senior center, that's something that's going to protect somebody based on their age. You get old, you need a place to stay. There's nothing wrong with that. A women's center, you talk about gender and sex. If a woman is being abused, there needs to be a place where a woman can be safe if she's being abused. That's what a women's center is for.
okay.
A whites only enclave, the only reason for that is to prepare for some type of violence. There's literally nothing constructive about that. What is constructive about excluding Black people? Because
So
that's
I
for.
can give you three different, I don't want to say benefits, but reasons.
Give me the reasons.
Okay, so number one, cultivation of one's own culture. When I use race and ethnicity almost interchangeably, but for example, let's say a group of Somalians in Minnesota want to go make a Somalian only community where you can only speak some, or they buy 200 acres and they go make a Somalian only community. Somalia is not a majority in America. These Somalians, if they so choose, should be able to go and preserve their own culture on 200 acres of private land in which no public money can be spent on the cultivation of said property. Once you start getting into the public sector, it's a little bit different. But the preservation of culture should be one of the many benefits of having these private, quote unquote, membership compounds.
Well,
No. Can I please say something?
go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead, love.
So
Go ahead.
that argument was erroneous. I don't know if he heard the doctor when he literally said, see, white is not a biological identity, it's a social construct. So all of these groups that fall under this white racial construct. They don't even have a shared, their shared culture is domestic terrorism, and that's what's
Okay.
going to be scrutinized. Let
So
me finish what I'm
go
saying.
on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The shared culture that you have, the Irish, the Italians, the Germans, the only thing you all have in common is your pale skin, your history of giving a status of white identity here in America, and a culture of domestic terrorism behind it. So what's going to happen is that when you go to make your argument that you want to preserve culture, there's going to be an examination into what that culture is. And
And
so
I'll say,
you won't get to hide behind this romanticized view of your own culture, which is ethnocentrism, steeped in ethnocentrism. You're going to have to deal with the reality that you don't have a shared culture outside of the domestic terrorism and harm of other groups. In which case, even if you wanted to say those other groups are violent, you therefore want to protect yourself against them, the violence of your own, it's always going to go back to that. That's why I'm saying you're not going to be in court making the argument that you think you're going to make, because you don't have it's not the level playing field that you're trying to frame it as. It's always going to go back to this group who is indigenous. Mind you, pale skinned people are not indigenous to anywhere on earth. So anytime you become a majority anywhere, it was behind a genocide. It's behind a mass
Oh,
extermination of human populations.
ma'am,
So with
I
that
do want
being
to go ahead and
said,
just interject real quick.
and then on top of that, you were given the status of white to essentially bolster you from having any adverse experiences due to your skin color. So
Again,
now
but
when you're talking about wanting to preserve something, the question is going to be, are you preserving that history of one directional terror that you have done in this nation? And so an argument is going to say these people are not fit to have, and on this is literally just playing into this psychopathic, sociopathic ideological framework that has characterized their existence in this nation for 400 years. That's
okay,
the argument against it. It's
the
not going to be an argument that, yeah, it's
so
not the argument that you're making.
say I'm a Somalian man and I have a Somalian wife, I have my Somalian family.
Somali people, white
Why?
is a social construct. A
Again, that's why.
Somali identity is their nationality, and one may argue that it will be their ethnic identifier here in America if they are Somali American. But
Yes.
you all constructing an identity of a status that was appended to the European peasants upon arrival, that is different. And what I'm saying is that status was appended to those European peasants so that they can take status over all non-white persons here in this country, and it was done with violence.
Correct,
So
but
there
don't
is
you?
no protection against those
But wouldn't
non-white persons,
co-
and you don't have a track record of not being violent to get that done.
correct? But say in the opposite direction that this was not just a couple of weirdos in Springfield, Missouri, but this was a gathering of brothers down in Georgia, 400 deep, that would want to go and start their own 200-acre community. By not allowing this community to exist based off the precipice of race, wouldn't it be
But it wouldn't be
antithetical?
based off. You're making a disingenuous argument.
Go ahead.
You don't have anything in this country that suggests that you are experiencing something because of your race. You literally were given the status of white so that you didn't have to experience America as pale. If you really want to be honest, as the European peasant.
Correct, ma'am.
With that being said, if a Negro town, so let's go back to these self-sustained towns and speak to their function in the America that I just outlined.
Yes.
These towns were done out of survival, and it's literally the solution to what we have been dealing with by other groups. Is that we need our dollar, we need to be able to own our production and have our dollars circulate within our collective. That's why we have
Wouldn't that be
this
easier in
generational wealth gap.
wouldn't that be easier in a community that you own all membership to?
And this is the thing, we don't even want to live by the look. Let me stop, because we don't even want to live by y'all, to be honest. So like, you're not the issue. You can have the town, it's just the concern is
Yes.
y'all are violent as, I don't even know how to say it in a more formal, politically correct way. You're violent as,
Go ahead.
What's going to keep you from slaughtering the black Amazon delivery driver that's assigned to that neighborhood?
Two reasons. I can tell you two reasons. Number one, there is no longer any federal protections for segregation publicly in any way, shape, and form. And secondly, murder is illegal.
Do you think
So
Negroes should find security? You think that after 400, that's why I referenced the 400 years of shared history.
yes,
Nobody is finding secure unless they want to offer, juxtaposed to your white towns, if they were offering protected class citizenship for Negroes, if they were offering things like that, then that would literally maybe level, that would probably level the playing field. If they were offering the land back, that the land that was stolen from us back, and say, here, you can have this as well, that would level the playing, juxtaposed to what you guys got going on.
So
But
you would
just
be
for
okay
you,
with these. So you would be okay with these communities as long as they are separate but equal.
the issue is, how do you evade 350 years? You have white men online right now complaining that their white town wasn't featured in TMZ. And so you got people who feel victims because they didn't have a feature in a magazine. But you're telling me that these same people wouldn't feel like a victim if they historically had 90% of their real estate stolen from them and then watched. I'll leave it alone. Because yeah,
No worries.
it's
No worries.
just, you're making it's
It's no. It's the fact
too
of
much
it's the
missing
fact
from the
of I know
conversation.
what the benefit would be. The benefit would be, and I know this sounds horrible, but I find that the FBA movement and the Heritage Americana movement, and I know it sounds like it sounds pseudo segregation-y, but because we don't have legalized public segregation no more, the concept of independent private towns in which people of their own culture can coexist peacefully within themselves, it doesn't sound ridiculous. It only sounds ridiculous when you have this plurality of, oh, you can exist in our society, but you can exist and live in this town, but you can't go shop at that grocery store. You can't go shop at that movie theater. That's where it hurts. That's where it starts stinging, you know?
Fawcett, now let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
Because you keep mentioning preserving culture, which is fine.
Yes.
What is white culture, and what are they preserving in white culture?
I'm not, what do you call it? When I'm arguing this point, I'm not arguing white culture. I'm arguing all of them together. It's not
No,
like,
no,
oh,
no,
I'm going to let these,
no, no,
because
no,
here's the thing. If you apply this
no,
to the
no,
white,
no,
go
no,
ahead.
no, 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 no,
Go
no.
ahead.
This place is preserving itself and presenting itself as a whites only enclave.
Correct.
Preserve white culture.
Correct.
What is that?
It's a place where people of European descent can go live amongst their own people peacefully. It's the same exact thing. That's why I could bring up Somalians, bring up Ghanan. If we had 200 different enclaves of different nationalities, would there really be an issue? And to my argument, it'd be no.
But what are you preserving? What's white culture? You haven't told me what's being preserved in this all white enclave.
What's Ghanan culture? What's Egyptian culture? What's German culture? That's not the argument. The argument is, if these people have the money.
No. That's literally the whole purpose of them building this enclave. They want to preserve white culture.
Okay.
Which
what? Go ahead. And okay. Again, defining what culture is a quagmire most people shouldn't go dip their toes into, because then it will go down the route of, okay, what's Muslim culture? What's Christian culture? What's women culture?
Let's go down. Muslim culture is building a mosque, praying 5 times a day, not eating pork. There's some well-defined things that defines Muslim culture. When people say they want to go somewhere where they can preserve Muslim culture, that means they want to go pray in peace, and that's understandable. That's something that's well defined.
So then why is that a problem for them to make their own enclave?
That's not a problem. If you want to go pray, if you have a culture that you can define, it's religion.
So then by your logic, these people should then it would be okay if they decided to get 500 acres in the middle of nowhere, Michigan, and start their own society. There would be no issue with that, correct?
But they're not discriminating based on race. If people want to come and convert to Islam, they can come, and this is a place where you can worship Islam.
Correct. But the problem is with the argument of this going to the Supreme Court is that if you're going to argue race, you have to argue now every single protected class is now unable to make its own membership in its own society.
But the thing is that, but we're talking about culture. What's the culture? What's white culture? What can you argue that what's actually being protected?
Individuals of European descent. It doesn't have to be more than that. We can even discriminate more. The Amish can discriminate. I could not describe to you what Amish culture is.
Okay,
it's not.
But that's the case. Like Dr. Randy Short, he has British ancestry. He's black. How come he can't get protection? He has European descent. A lot of people can pull up a DNA test and show some European descent, but we're not going to get protection and admission into these places. So how is European descent culture?
And that's great, because if this was in the public sector, you would need to define that. You would need to define legally what is a European, what is a Somalian, what is an FBA, what is a Christian. The problem is, though, is we're not talking about the public segregation sector. We can all agree that segregation in the public sector is bad. We're talking about private segregation. They can just say that a Muslim's a guy that's 6 feet tall. They're not wrong, because that's what their own private business is saying.
Let me get Brother Marcel in here. Brother Marcel, hop on.
Hey, Tariq, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. So, Fawcett, I have some things to say to you. First of all, I'm a fan of voluntary separation. Let me be very clear. Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, we've spent most of our time in this country trying to get the hell away from y'all. When after the Civil War, we asked to get land and for y'all to leave us the hell alone. Y'all never left us alone. We built Black Wall Streets. Y'all came to our Black Wall Streets and often burnt them down. So voluntary separation is something that foundational Black Americans have been trying to practice all along. It's been white Americans who have been against voluntary separation. Now, segregation I don't like, because segregation is imposed by the government. Yes. I don't feel the federal government should be telling people where they can and cannot go in a country, especially foundational Black Americans, that we have built.
Thank you.
Voluntary separation is different. So if these white people want to buy some private property and set up their own little enclave and get the hell away from us, fine with me. But here is the problem.
Okay.
Those same white people will argue against foundational Black Americans setting up funds to fund our campaigns. Every time I spoke about reparations, and I spoke about us as foundational Black Americans getting together and fighting for what we are owed, those same white people who claim they want to be left the hell alone, they are up in my mentions telling us what we don't deserve. If they want to be left the hell alone, then leave us the hell alone. They don't do that. Every time that foundational Black Americans start organizations and we're financing initiatives to help our people, those same white Americans who are saying they want to be left the hell alone are the same ones going to the courts trying to sabotage what we have going on. So I call out the hypocrisy of these white Americans who claim they want to be left the hell alone. They're the first ones who go to court to stop anything that foundational Black Americans do to try to help ourselves. They're the first ones who will talk about grievances of the government, talk about DEI and affirmative action, which has helped white Americans the most. And if you look at it historically speaking, white men have been helped by what you can call affirmative action, DEI the most. Those same white Americans will go to court and talk about government intrusion while ignoring all the government intrusion and abuse that has been levied against foundational Black Americans that we are now calling to get compensation for. Those same white Americans are the ones who argue against membership when foundational Black Americans are saying that, hey, let us have our thing, you can have your thing, but we're going to have our constitutional rights protected. Those same white Americans will come and say, no, 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 that's discrimination. That's reverse racism. So you need to be making this argument to your fellow white Americans, whether they're heritage white Americans, I know that phrase, or not. You don't need to be making that to us, because foundational Black Americans have had no issues with voluntary separation. We were thriving until y'all imposed yourselves upon us. That's where the problem started. When hold on.
Go ahead.
Because you've been talking for a very long time.
Go ahead.
So hold on. when we organize ourselves to get things popping, those same white Americans who say want to be left the hell alone, they come and bother us. So why can't they leave us the hell alone? And what's going to happen with these communities, which I, in essence, I'm not against, those same white Americans are going to get together and they're going to try to say, well, that black neighborhood down the street that's not bothering anyone, let's go down there and bother them now. That's the problem. They want to be left the hell alone, but they don't leave anyone else the hell alone. They want to talk about the grievances of the federal government, how the federal government has done this against them, yet we have 400 years of history of the federal government abusing us, and we say the federal government needs to treat us with the same respect and the same justice they treated other people, which means reparations. Those same white Americans will rally against our fight. So if they want to be left the hell alone, leave us the hell alone. Because when we want to be left the hell alone, it's based on justice, it's based on righteousness. That's a part of Black American culture. You can't define white American culture. I can define Black American culture. It's about civil rights, it's about innovation, it's about the beauty of arts, it's about soul food, it's about the strength of families sticking together even when you're under the most oppressive conditions. I can define Black American culture. It's about respecting all people. When these black towns in Texas and Georgia are popping up, they're not saying other groups can't come there. The reason they even want these towns is because those same white Americans who want to be left the hell alone are often terrorizing them. That's the problem. And not terrorizing them as in street violence all the time, but terrorizing them is that they are the ones who have institutional power and access to institutional power, and those institutions do not serve us and have not served us for centuries and have yet to make the repair that they need to do. So I'm all for people want to be left the hell alone, but those same white people who will form these towns, because it's their private property, go ahead, do your thing. They won't leave other people the hell alone, and you know that's true.
So, and the one thing, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tariq. Sorry, you were going to go and say something.
Thank you. I was thanking Brother Marcel. Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Fawcett.
The one thing I will say, and the one thing that I believe that will ease these tensions, right? Because the one thing I believe that would actually ease these tensions is if this did go to the Supreme Court. And I know obviously I keep bringing up the Supreme Court, the decision, the blah, 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 blah. What does it have to do with the price of rice in China? Why should I care? It's not the fact of, oh, yay, pro-white, whatever. The issues that he just brought up of, oh, every time, an FBA community pops up, these, crazy dudes from down the street want to come up and start violence. If everyone in America was given a final say on what we can and cannot do, I genuinely believe that the tension that has been caused by this one group in Springfield, Missouri, would finally be eased. There wouldn't be peace, complete peace. There never will be complete peace. But this tension, this, I don't want to say vindictiveness, but this belief of DEI in the white communities would probably be quashed a little bit if the Supreme Court finally gave a final decision on who can go ahead and make their own communities, who cannot make their own communities. Why are the Amish okay? Why are the, Muslims in Tabarok, Michigan okay? But why not us? If we could finally, and I mean both FBAs and Heritage Americans, if we could finally get an actual answer to what is okay to make your own private land of, all this tension would go away. But it is the concept of this having to, I don't want to say having to right the wrong because you have to do it, but it's this overwhelming arc of having to right the wrong of segregation that gets these white folks mad because it's like, okay, where does the end? Where is the end? When can we finally make our own? So I'm telling you, the solution is literally staring at us right down the barrel, and that is we got to go to the Supreme Court and see how this plays out.
So, bottom line, you are for these segregated enclaves, right?
As long as anyone can go ahead and do it, absolutely.
Right. Okay, let me get Cousin Jerry in real quick. Your Cousin Jerry, hop on in real quick. Jerry?
Hey, Flex, how's it going?
I'm good. What's going on, brother?
Not much, not much. I think I understand the disconnect that this young man has.
Yeah.
For some reason, this young man, he wants us to jump into this fight and go to the Supreme Court. He's somehow under the illusion that they're going to view our fight and his fight as equal.
Right.
See, what we're trying to get him to understand, the reason why we're just sitting here letting him ramble on, this is not an equal fight. If we decide that we want 1,000 acres and separate, within 6 months, we're going to be infiltrated and destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to say we want our own private clubs, within a year, we're going to be up on Fed charges.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes.
once your community and whatever white community y'all do that, y'all are going to be protected because you're going to set your own government up of your own people that are party to the federal government. So you keep telling us Supreme Court and all this. Listen, those things that you're saying, they are your fight that you're trying to get us involved in. What we're saying is just this simple. Just as the guy in Brunswick, Georgia was.
Oh, well, yeah, cousin Jerry.
He was literally, come on
Uh-oh.
now. Internet for Jerry, please come back.
Cousin Jerry, you here? Uh-oh. I don't know what happened.
Hey, Tariq.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? To kind of take off from what the last gentleman was speaking of, I mean, this whole argument boils down to they trying to sneak in this whole thing to the Supreme Court in order to dismantle everything else. It's just plain of it. I'm a truck driver. I've been driving trucks for 25 years. I've spoken to you before. I've been to every corner of the United States, including Alaska. Whites-only communities exist.
Yep.
They've been existing for years and in bigger pockets than this little Springfield, Missouri location. One thing they practice is violence. I have my own company. I deliver food to grocery stores all across the country. As a black man, I'm hated. I'm scared off. Sundown towns. Not only do they exist, they thrive.
Oh, yeah.
So this community does not come with the simple, let's get together in peace and harmony and celebrate this quote unquote white culture.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not what they're trying to practice. They're trying to practice violence. And I know there's a viral video right now in a normal suburban community. A black Amazon driver. I know you brought it up, but there's actual footage of it you can look up. They literally chased him off.
Oh, yeah.
And they called the police on him, and the police handcuffed him for making a delivery.
Oh,
Mind you, the whole entire video shows him just conducting his job.
yeah, this happens all the time. Black FedEx drivers, black Amazon drivers get up in a white neighborhood and get shot and chased off. Yeah, this happens all the time. So I can imagine what would happen in this little all white enclave. But go ahead, brother.
Yeah. And I have to drive my truck to multiple towns. I've been to, like, there's this town called Salina, Kansas, off I-70. I sat at the truck stop to have my lunch after I made my delivery. Literally everybody, this is not that far, not that long ago. They literally walked out the whole truck stop. And I wasn't aware of it till about 10, 15 minutes. And I asked the waitress, is it usually this slow? She said, don't pay him no attention. They just walked off because you came in. This happened about a year ago.
Oh, wow.
So this happens all the time. White culture, quote unquote, like I grew up in Seattle, moved to Atlanta. White culture is one of violence, one of exclusion, one of fear, of I don't know what they're afraid of. I mean, I'm sure you broke it down multiple times, but moving to Atlanta, I've experienced as a half Ethiopian, half Italian person.
Yep.
I've experienced nothing but love from FBAs. FBAs, when they, let's say, for example, there's a community called Niski Lake, a whole community of millionaire black folks in Atlanta, just not that about a mile away from the mayor of Atlanta's house.
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple of white people that were able to buy a house a few years back. No problems. Nobody told them they can't buy a house over there. Nobody excludes them. But there's no such thing, which is the same exact equivalent to that when it comes to whites only community. When they want to start up a community like this is a ploy to destroy every other protection that is around. Now, as far as the FBA community, like you said, there's no protection that would, if the protection was even available, this is just fear of problems they cause in the first place. When I say problems is just because you're lazy and you attracted a bunch of immigrants to your communities to do the jobs that you don't want to do, not black people, I'm talking about white Americans do not want to work. That's been the history of white America since the 1600s. They cannot handle certain types of work. When I spoke to you the first time about a year ago, I was telling you about a company I used to work for in Atlanta, a food service company. We had 55 drivers that delivered to Starbucks all across the Southwest, Southeast, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, all the way down to Florida. We had 2 white guys. It's not like the job didn't pay money. We were making $150,000 and $160,000 a year, so pay was never a problem.
Mhm.
We did everything to advertise to attract drivers to come and help us out. We had a 90% turnover rate, meaning people do not want to do those jobs. But you know who was working there dedicated for over 10, 15 years? FBA brothers I work with.
Mhm.
Strong FBA brothers. We're talking about offloading a 53-foot trailer full of milk, groceries, and everything else to different Starbucks stores. So this whole notion of laziness, this is something that they like to spread around, but really who the lazy one is them. And then what they do is they attract foreign, illegal migrant workers to come over and work in their communities. And then when those migrant workers multiply and kind of overwhelm their communities, and now they get afraid, they want to start another coal community. And like the sister was speaking a little while ago, it's just a matter of time before that community fails. It's going to fail because they can't do the work. They can't sustain themselves. Next thing is they're going to start
So
bringing more people again.
so then just really quickly, if these communities are doomed to fail, wouldn't it be a testament to the history books to allow them to destroy themselves, to effectively cannibalize themselves, and to show history that this does not work?
No, that
Wouldn't
that's
that be the
that would be
logical thing to
that
do?
would have been fine if that's what's all going to happen. That's not what's going to happen. The fact is, violence is within their nature. You understand what I'm saying? So they
Okay.
can't. They're not just going to cannibalize themselves. They're going to throw. They're going to go above and beyond and try to eat up everything around them. This is the problem. Like the whole Tulsa thing. I don't know if you actually understand it. The jealousy and the envy is what caused them to commit the violence they committed. Because they know they can do it, they can cut it out on their own. They went ahead and cannibalized everybody else. I mean, the separation of what they wanted, they should just left those folks alone, and they could have been thriving. But multiple places all around the country. Atlanta, I'll give you an example. Atlanta at the moment is experiencing a amazing thing for Black Americans because to a certain degree, Black Americans are left alone to succeed. But there's also a lot of murmurs in Atlanta with the white community. One coach came out and said that quiet out loud a few years ago when he was upset about literally he mentioned the success that Black Americans are having in Atlanta. When Black Americans are left alone, foundational Black Americans always succeed. It just so happened that somebody from your community, sir, watches it, gets jealous, instead of going out there and competing and doing what he's supposed to be doing, then he goes try to sabotage it. That's the problem. If you're understanding where this whole conversation
No,
is
no,
going.
I get that. The concept of the whites are going to band together to destroy what they deem is better. Like I understand that concept, or they just simply don't want the Negroes living
Right.
down the street. That is something I understand. And if we had, an all-white Supreme Court, if we had an all-white justice system, then yeah, I could see the fear. But if you go to Washington, D.C., we literally have two FBAs, dare I say. Is Cantani all the
We
way
don't know.
FBA?
We don't know.
Okay. Well, I know Clarence Thomas is. We even have an FBA on the Supreme Court. I don't think the quote unquote white federal power structure would allow for ruthless race violence to permeate through America if these societies were able to be made. And the reason why I know that is because we already have communities that are effectively 100% white, like the Amish community. You may say, oh, there's one Black brother that lives there, but effectively it's 99% white. You don't see Amish people going down the street and killing, who knows who just because they're not Amish. Mennonites, so
Slow
on and
down, but
so
they
forth.
didn't make it a discriminatory place. Black folks just don't want to live in an Amish neighborhood. It's not discriminatory based on race. It's like they practice certain religious customs and they don't like technology, things like that. If that's so, it's not based on you blacks can't live here. In fact, many of the Amish, some of them were helping on the Underground Railroad, so a lot of the Amish are actually cool. So that's kind of a false equivalency. But thank you so much, Fawcett. I mean, I thank you so much for
No
that.
worries.
Fawcett to be here babbling forever. So you got to watch out for the Fawcett kind. All right. You got to watch out for Fawcett. Let me tell you why. They want to rebrand segregation as cultural autonomy. All of that self-sufficiency, like-minded living, community preservation, culture, white culture. That's why he could never answer the question when I kept saying, what the hell is white culture? They can't really answer that question. You can't answer that question because what you're trying to preserve is white supremacist culture. White supremacist culture is violence. That's what white supremacist culture is. It's all about violence. You understand? Don't let them try to wiggle and weasel themselves around certain words. So him coming in trying to act friendly, that's a con game if I've ever seen one. It's to get us to buy into their segregation without challenging the power structures to make it seem like everybody wins. Oh, this is a con game. Like my cousin Jerry said, look, if we do what they're doing, oh, they'll eminent domain the shit out of us. We'll get federal charges. And every time we try to get a black enclave where we're just trying to be protected, we're not trying to harm nobody. We just want to live without being sabotaged. Every time we do that and we start thriving just a little bit, that shit gets sabotaged by the government and the white supremacist powers that be. Out here in California, right above Bakersville, you have Allensworth. It's still there. It's a little village. It's just like a museum piece now. And you heard me talk about it before. Black people came out of slavery, came out here to California, got them some land, got a self-sufficient little village called Allensworth. Allensworth, he was a Mr. Allen. He was a former slave who fought in the Civil War. And remember, we helped win the Civil War. Beautiful little village, had a nice hotel, nice, beautifully built homes, beautifully built church, beautifully built school. The white supremacists started sabotaging the water supply. Always. Brother Marcel talked about after the Civil War. Listen, I want y'all to understand something. After the Civil War, there were black people who actually got some 40 acres off the coastal islands of Georgia. Some black people. It was a brother named Tunis Campbell. He was the leader. Brother came down from, I think Tunis was from New York, foundational Black American. Went down into Georgia. They were allotted land, part of that 40 acres and a mule thing. And they got the former Confederate land. This was they were getting. They were going to allocate all of that land that the Confederates, because the Confederates just fought a war against the U.S. government. They were killing people. They really tried to overthrow the damn government. So initially, they confiscated that land, and Brother Tunis Campbell came down, got some of that land, brought a bunch of black people down. They started building schools. They had a damn court system. They had a Supreme Court system. They had a fully functioning sovereign black government down there off the coast of Georgia. They had a 400-man militia to protect it. Within a year, that shit was thriving. They were growing crops. They told the North, hey, send us some farm equipment, send us some seeds. They had that shit popping within a year. The white people were like, hell no. Revoke that 40 acres and a mule shit. We can't give them that. Look at what these are former slaves. They got a fully functioning government up here right now. Get that up out of here. They revoked the 40 acre, the special field order 15, something like that. Told the white Confederates, the former Confederates, come on back, get your land. They got their land. They went back and ran the black people off the land and violently retook the land back and then said, oh, let's get some Jim Crow and some black codes. Then they start putting up all them discriminatory laws. So yeah, the minute we start getting something popping, self-sufficient, and it becomes successful, they're going to start sabotaging the shit out of it. And we've shown over time and time again, when we do things on our own, foundational Black Americans, we are successful at it. We can get some shit popping. All we have to do is get them out of our damn mix. That's why we're the threat. That's why they always got to be on top of our shit all the time. You leave us be, we start getting things popping. But old Fawcett, you got to watch the con game. You got to watch the whole con game. Trying to make it seem like, yeah, this membership thing, it'll be a victory for all of us. Let's say you guys wanted to get your little memberships too. It'll be protected. We're all like one, just one big equal family. Man, please. If we pool our money together and get like 500 acres somewhere, they'll eminent domain that shit. Oops, we're gonna build an Amazon plant. Oh, we got to get this land. Oops, we got to take the land. Oops, Bruce's Beach. Oops, eminent domain. We're gonna turn it into Manhattan Beach. That's what they did here in California. Black people bought that beach land out there on the coast of California, out here in LA. Built a damn resort and had that shit popping. They were like, oops, we got to get this from you. They just compensated the family a few years ago. Yeah. But old Fawcett, his whole con game, he want to try to make us the face of voluntary segregation. By trying to convince us to publicly support these little separate systems, the white supremacists, they can say, look, they wanted it too. You see, I was talking to the blacks and they were fully on board with it. See, that gives them cover. You see, they're trying to flip the script to make it seem like we're complicit with this bullshit. We ain't. We're not. This is what I'm saying. We ain't, because we know where the shit goes. We ain't complicit with it. We know where it goes. Yeah. See, the thing is, they don't, it's important for them to do shit without us opposing it. Because they know when we start opposing it, that means there's something wrong with it. If we oppose it and we say, hey, something ain't, no, that ain't right, that means that there's some weight to it. See, I want foundational Black Americans to really understand how culturally significant you are. If you don't co-sign something, the shit don't really fly. You are the moral barometer to certain things. Foundational Black Americans. If we are against something, people are like, oh, let's watch out for that. If we're for something, people are like, oh, we need to fuck with it too. You see, they need us to kind of be in line with this little bullshit they got going on so they can get away with it. You dig? Because see, if we don't actively oppose this stuff, it becomes harder to challenge them legally. See, courts look at intent and consent. So when these white supremacists frame this as some kind of mutual or voluntary separation, that undermines claim of discrimination. You see, so if you don't resist, that means you agree with it. See, they want to normalize segregation in the language of safety and stability. You see, using these little funny words, cultural harmony, safe neighborhoods, community values. All of this stuff excludes us. And see, if we don't push back, this coded language becomes standardized. So future generations grow up thinking that these divisions are natural and justified and even beneficial. Just like we need to I'm glad Dr. Short was breaking down Missouri and what happened in those areas, how Black folks were getting lynched. No. You're not going to make it seem like these were just places that were naturally white. Many of these little white enclaves out here now, they were made white because the Black people were ran up out of them violently. Go get the book Sundown Town. I used to promote that show. When I did Mac Lessons Radio, I would promote that book. That's how deep that book was. And it broke down all of these little racial enclaves all around the country and how they racially cleansed a lot of these towns and cities and counties all through the United States. And James Lauren, who the author is a white man, he said most of the sundown towns surprisingly were not in the South. They were in the North. That's where most of the damn sundown towns are. And out here in California, all of these so-called places that are supposed to be all liberal and shit. No. These places were hotbeds for all white towns where they would just run all the black people out of there. It's not that's not natural for a bunch of white people to be living in all of these places like that, and black people to be kind of funneled here and then. That's not natural. That's done by design. They had one of those sundown towns. Well, they had a couple out here. Glendale was a sundown town. Pasadena was a sundown town. Glendale, low key, is still low key kind of a sundown town. Glendale, Burbank was a sundown town. Hawthorne was a sundown town. I want to say Compton was a sundown town at one point. I want to say Compton was one. They had a couple of them down in Orange County. They had a major one up there in Northern California, Paradise, California. That was a major sundown town, and that burned to the ground not too long ago. A couple of years. Y'all remember the big fires we had out here? That whole town burned to a crisp. But that wasn't nothing but the ancestors. Yeah. So we got to watch these folks. Yeah, they try to act like they're bringing us something that's going to be beneficial to everybody. No, they just want to put something out there so that we don't oppose it, so they can get away with it. So now we got to watch them. All right. Well, we got a lot of folks in here, man. Much respect to you guys. Much respect to everybody in here. Let's get the Carlotta show. Let's get Miss Carlotta. Miss Carlotta, hop on in. Miss Carlotta, hop on in. If you are ready, ma'am.
Hello,
Hey,
Tariq. Can you hear me
how
now? Hi. Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say I thought Fawcett was dead on in telling us the plan. I love white supremacists like him because that plan is to take that to the Supreme Court.
Yes.
They they have a more conservative Supreme Court now than more than ever. And what I'm afraid of is, as Black people, we don't have the powers in place that we once had during the Civil Rights Movement. The Black Caucus is almost dead. I mean, I don't even know who they fight for anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's a little unnerving when I hear a plan like that and we don't have, and then our old, like the NAACP, Urban League, all of those are dead things now.
Yeah.
So what can we do to kind of combat that plan? I love what you said about the lawyers. We definitely need that.
Yes. That's one of the main things we need. We got to get a network of lawyers that we can talk to and just kind of organize and strategize with.
Yeah. Yes,
So,
yes, because it's getting
right.
scary. When I hear that talk and I see that Supreme Court, I'm like, yeah, they can get this. They can do this. And white supremacy never makes any sense. They do it at times when they see us weakening. So I think they see us weakening from a standpoint of how the liberals have been able to get a lot of the Black powers to shut down on Trump. Like now, a lot of the Black caucus isn't going to challenge Trump.
Yeah.
Now we have them only at the white liberals' request. You can only go when the white liberals tell
Oh,
you, and that to me is nerving.
yeah. But thank you so much, beloved.
Thank you,
Get,
thank you.
Dakara. Dukara. All right, Dukara, you ain't saying nothing. Let me give you 5 seconds. Dukara. Dukara, I'm gonna give you 5 of them seconds. And since you ain't saying nothing, Dukara ain't saying nothing. Shahan, are you in the building, Shahan? Oh, let me get Dukara up out of here. Shahan. And I see the Pakistani dude. You're not letting you in. Y'all don't be want nothing. Let's get Myrick. Let's get Myrick in here. Myrick or Myrick. How do I pronounce your name? Myrick or Myrick? Okay, since you're not saying nothing, let's get some new faces in here. Let's get B Dog in the building. B Dog in the building.
Yeah, can I say something or?
Yeah, what's up, B Dog?
Yeah, I was gonna say, the white nationalist cocksuckers, the racist white guys. It's not all of them. It's probably like I would say 10-15% of white people.
Okay.
But what I've realized from being a Trump supporter is these guys don't give a if you support Trump or if you support whatever. If you're not white, you're not accepted, and that's what I've been realizing on Twitter. I'm new to Twitter,
Okay.
and I've been on a lot of these spaces, like these white nationalist spaces, and it's opened my eyes a lot. Like these guys don't give a they want America to only be white. If you're not a white Anglo-Saxon or whatever the they call it, you're not an American. It's weird because they say you're not an ethnic American, you're just an American passport holder. And then I tell them, I'm like, what about black people? They've been here before America even existed. They're like, oh, they're not American. They don't belong here. We're gonna send them back. I'm like, bro, this ain't the old days. The Second Amendment applies to all of
Mm-hmm.
us. And I told them if we ever went to war, like you guys, they're planning something with all these white communities. They're planning a civil war. These guys, and I told them like, you're not gonna win because if you add all the minorities together, black people, Middle Eastern people, Asians, Hispanics, we're gonna defeat you guys. And I think this is God's karma to them for all the evil shit they've done in the last 250 years. It's time for them to fall.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. They don't realize that a lot of us are trained too. I was in the military. A lot of black people are in the military. Most of the military nowadays is minority. They think that we don't belong here, it blows my
Now, B
mind.
Dog, where's your family from, B Dog?
Uh, we're from Iraq. My parents came here in the 1970s, and we're not Arab though. We're
Oh,
Assyrians.
okay.
So we're like the indigenous people of Iraq and ancient Mesopotamia and the Babylonian Assyrian Empire.
Okay.
They think white people created everything. They think, like from what I've seen being in their spaces, they think black people are stupid. Black people didn't create anything. They think without white people going to Africa, Africa would be nothing, and it's crazy the shit they say.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with what they say and how they get down. But thank you so much. But yeah, these folks, they're delusional, but unfortunately, they have a lot of societal power, and we have to be able to combat these white supremacist ideologies. All right. Anyway, let me wrap it on up, ladies and gentlemen. Let me get up out of here. It's been real. We had a decent conversation on the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen, and I respect and thank everybody. Everybody go to hiddenhistorymuseum.com and get the Hidden Heroes from A to Z book and also make a contribution to the Hidden History Museum. That is our institution that we preserve our history, hiddenhistorymuseum.com. Also go to rootworkstyle.com to get that rootwork deodorant, rootworkstyle.com, and get some foundational Black American flags, hats, t-shirts, the whole shebang at officialfba.com. Officialfba.com. All right, I'm up out of here, guys. Puppy Akute, Lola Vuve to the family. Peace.
Wad up? You know what it is. You better get you some root work at rootworkstyle.com.
Slide on that root work. Slide on that root work. Slide on that root work. Slide on that root work.